Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the New Beyond. I'm Judith Rich, and today we're diving into a question that lives right at the center of so many of our human struggles, especially for those of us on the path of personal growth and transformation. It's the question that haunts the creative, the entrepreneur, the healer, the seeker, probably people a lot like you. It whispers through our work, our worth, our relationships, our dreams. I'm calling today's episode The Trap of Self-Improvement. When is good enough good enough? And deeper yet, the deeper question, why do I never feel like I'm good enough? So let's get started. If you're listening to this as a podcast or watching the video on YouTube, chances are you're somebody who cares deeply about personal growth. You're a seeker, you're a builder, you're an artist of your own becoming. And in our world of personal development, I say it all the time, you hear it all the time. There is always more to heal, more to fix, more to become. And while, yes, transformation is a journey with no fixed destination, here's the paradox. That very truth can become its own kind of prison. Because if there's always more to do, more to refine, more to perfect, how do we avoid falling into the trap of perfectionism, masquerading as self-improvement? How do we ever know when it's okay to take our hands off of it? Call it done or call it good enough. Think of the artist, the painter, endlessly returning to the canvas, or the writer, rewriting the same paragraph, or the entrepreneur, tweaking the offer, changing the website copy or the email copy again and again. Ask me how I know. I've been there. When I was working on my doctoral dissertation, I spent an entire year doing all the research, conducting the interviews, compiling the questionnaires, analyzing the statistics. I had stacks and stacks of research papers lining my office walls. Basically, I was complete, and I knew it. And still, I never wrote a word. I just kept doing more research. I kept going to the library. I kept tweaking the statistics and never wrote a word. I even sourced my computer crashing and losing all my data, which I had foolishly not backed up. So I had to start all over again with the section on statistics, which wasn't exactly my favorite part of the whole process. Writing my book took me much, much longer than it needed to, not because it wasn't ready, but because I wasn't ready. Again, as I did with the dissertation, I did the same thing. I kept adjusting, refining, improving, all the while telling myself I was just being thorough. But in truth, I was afraid. I was afraid to take my hands off of it and put it out there because if I never declared it done, I never had to take the risk of it being rejected, of not being good enough. I was hiding behind perfectionism, was hiding behind being diligent, being committed, being in excellence and all of that. But in truth, I was actually staying in my comfort zone. Can you relate? On the surface, it might look like perfectionism, like we just have high standards, like we're just trying to get it right. But if you peel back the layers, what's underneath isn't about standards. It's about safety, comfort, and fear. Because when we keep tweaking and fixing and reworking what we've created, what we're often attempting to outrun is the pain of rejection and shame. Not the I made a mistake kind of shame, But the more toxic subterranean version, I am the mistake. I'm not enough. I'm not lovable unless I get it right, or I'm only valuable if I exceed expectations. Sound familiar? This not enough story usually starts pretty early in life. It's born in families, in systems, in our education system, in religions, in cultures that reward performance over presence. Corporations, dare I mention. Systems that tell us we're unlovable if we're not obedient. That if we want to be lovable, we must be obedient. We can be lovable if we're pretty, if we're successful, if we don't rock the boat. It's baked into capitalism too. Always the need to produce more, improve more, scale more, achieve more. Eventually, it's inevitable that we'll internalize it. And then we live inside the conversation of who I am as I am is insufficient, is not enough. So we try to outrun that inner emptiness by continuously improving ourselves. But here's the thing, self-improvement, when coming from a place of self-rejection, actually deepens the wound. And here's the paradox. Evolution is part of our soul's purpose. We're here to evolve. We're here to become. But when it's driven by a belief that you're broken or unworthy, unless you change, the journey then often becomes a trap. You never arrive. You never rest. You never let yourself celebrate who you've already become because the finish line keeps moving. And the measuring stick in this game was always rigged against you. But guess who set the measuring stick? Yeah, you and a host of all those early influences you took on as truth. So let's unpack a few things. We know that perfection, at least I believe that perfection is a moving target that we never reach. But let's have good enough be the quiet voice that says, you can rest now. You've done what you came to do today. It doesn't mean being careless or sloppy. What if good enough wasn't failure, but simply completion in the now? What if it was an act of self-trust, a vote for your aliveness over your anxiety, like saying, I did my best. I might return later, but for now, I'll rest here. Then again, I might not return later. And either way, I'm okay with that. What if good enough could mean you've dotted the I's that you can see? You've crossed the T's you know are there. And you trust that what's unfinished might also be good enough to move forward. Good enough is where momentum lives. It's the place where you let go, not because you're settling, but because you're trusting. Sometimes a deadline draws the line for you. You hit the submit button, not because it's perfect, but just because the moment has arrived. Other times, maybe you learned what you needed to learn earlier than expected, and the true gift is to move on rather than polish endlessly. I've coached so many visionary women and heart-led entrepreneurs who struggle with this. Their standards are sky high, and that's beautiful. But when your best today never feels like enough, you can burn out in service of an ideal that was never human to begin with. So I ask, can you allow it to be messy? Can you let yourself release that bone you've been gnawing? Can you whisper to yourself, that's enough for now. I am enough for now. Can you let yourself stop tweaking and allow yourself to risk being seen? What if good enough wasn't a fallback or a compromise, but a sacred threshold of trust? A moment where you pause and say, I brought my presence to this. I've offered what I could from the depth of who I am right now. And that's enough. Even if there's typos, even if it's not your highest launching, your highest grossing launch, even if it doesn't get applause, the fact is you showed up, you gave your best, you didn't abandon yourself in the process. Let's be honest. Healing the belief of I'm not enough, it doesn't happen in one aha moment, but it does begin with a recognition, with being willing to pause the hustle and the grind long enough to feel the deeper fear. If I stop improving, will I still be worthy? Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You're not here to prove your worth through productivity. You're here to remember your inherent worth and to let your life be a reflection of that remembrance. So let me offer you a few simple practices, some soul food for your journey. When you find yourself overworking something, name it. Name, I see, I'm overworking this. And then ask yourself, am I refining or am I avoiding? Now, this can be tricky because the ego rarely wants to own up to the truth. So, brutal honesty is important here. It's not always easy to be objective about our motives. Those not enough wounds go so deep. And so, if you find yourself in an endless loop of overworking something, the very act of overworking is a clue you're probably avoiding. So then pause and ask yourself, what would it feel like to believe that this is enough right now? And then notice your body's response to this question. Do you feel anxiety or do you feel relief? If you feel anxiety, you're likely operating from a not enough wound. So then stop, take a deep breath, and breathe into that place where you feel anxiety. And then listen to what your inner voice is saying. And what is that inner voice anyway? Is it yours? Or is it the inner voice of someone else's standards that you took in as truth? And then ask yourself, is this good enough for now? Can I live with it the way it is right now? And if the answer is yes, then celebrate what's complete, even if it's messy and it's probably imperfect by someone else's standards. But rest. Rest then as reclamation, rest as radical self trust. Because here in the new beyond, we don't wait till we're done to declare ourselves worthy. We don't equate polish with power. We walk forward with loose ends and an open heart. So if you've been holding your breath, waiting for that moment when everything finally feels perfect, maybe today is the day to exhale. If you've been stuck in the spiral of fixing, refining, waiting for the perfect moment, maybe today is the day you choose good enough. Maybe today is the day you stop hiding behind potential and start living inside your power. Maybe today is the day to lay down the armor of self-improvement and step into the spacious truth of your being. You are not a project. You are a soul in motion. You are already enough. Your voice is enough. Your presence is enough. Not someday, not after you fix yourself, but now. right now, exactly as you are. Thank you for walking this powerful path with me today. And if this resonated, please share it with somebody who needs the reminder. And if you're ready to deepen your journey of enoughness, I'd love to walk with you. Until next time, and always, love and blessings.